I was selected last October to be a part of the television show Broken Skull Challenge on CMT. I had seen the show many times on TV last fall and saw a link to apply for the second season on Facebook and decided I have nothing to lose, so I went ahead and filled it out. About 3 weeks later, I got a phone call around 9 p.m. at night from a California phone number and ignored it. I listened to my voicemail, and the woman said she was with Broken Skull Challenge, and I immediately got overly excited. I called her back immediately, trying not to sound like a giddy schoolgirl. She told me I had been selected for the first round of casting and sent me an email with several pages of information to fill out. Just basic information about myself and my training background. If you have not seen the show, it is a one on one physical challenge show on CMT that starts with 8 competitors and narrows down to one each episode. I filled out the packet ASAP and mailed it in the next morning. I tried not to think much about it, and 2 weeks later, I got a phone call saying I was moving on to the next round of casting. I set up a day and time for my Skype interview with the casting agency. We did basic interview questions asking me why I think I should be on the show, why I think I would win, my accomplishments, and motivations. I also had to basically do a little self promo, including flexing and all of that nonsense. She said I did well and they would be in touch. Again, I tried not to get my hopes up, and once again, I got a phone call a few weeks later saying I'd made it through casting and just needed to fill out a very lengthy form of background checks, rules, and waivers. After sending that in, I did not hear back for about a month and was pretty disappointed. Finally, I heard back and was told that I was selected as long as my paperwork cleared and they needed me to fly to LA the week of Halloween. Again, I heard nothing for a few weeks and was pretty upset since I had taken the time off of work. A week before I was supposed to fly out, they called me saying my background took too long and they wanted me for maybe the next season. I, of course, said I would do it. Well, later that day, they called back saying someone else couldn't make it and if I could still fly out in a few days. Of course, I said yes. I flew to LA Monday morning at about 5 a.m., and as soon as I landed, I was rushed to do a physical, got to walk Hollywood Boulevard, and meet some of the cast members. They took us to our hotel, which was gorgeous, where we had meetings with the directors to go over the rules for the next day. It was a very long day, but I managed to get as much sleep as possible. We had to be up the next morning at 6 a.m. and took a van about 30 minutes to the desert and were not allowed to speak with one another. We did a ton of promo filming, interviews, and competing. The first event was called Drag Race. You and another competitor are strapped into a harness with a 10-foot rope between you. When they say go, you try and race to your bell, which is across from you. You are in a sand pit that is approximately 30 feet long and 20 feet wide. Anything goes besides striking each other. I watched the first two groups go, and I was paired up against a short, stocky guy named Amadeus, who was about 5'5", 220. He was a big time talker, whereas I'm more about letting my actions speak for me. Stone Cold interviews us beforehand, and he goes on and on about how he's going to beat me. I basically laugh it off, and then we get into the pit. Once they set you up, take a few shots, they stop and let you take your mic off. Once we actually started, I sprinted ahead and managed to get him off his feet. For the next 15 minutes or so, I slowly crawled my way to my bell and rung it, moving me on to the next round. After it was down to four of us, we broke for lunch and had about an hour to relax and get ready to go again. The next event was called Ballbuster, where there is about a 100-foot steep dirt hill, and you start at the bottom of it with 20, 30, and 40-pound medicine balls. You take the lightest ball, run one-third of the way up, and have to throw the ball 12 feet up the hill behind a wooden barricade. Then you run back down, grab the next ball, and run halfway up the hill and do the same thing. Finally, you run down the hill, grab the heaviest one, and run up to the top of the hill, throw it over a 10-foot wall, and then you have to jump over that wall and ring the bell. I was the first group to go on this event. There is not much to say except that it was one of the hardest things I've ever done competitively. I got off to a good lead and kept it the entire time. It took several tries to get over the wall due to fatigue and being short, but I finally did, which advanced me to the third round. The final round had the last two remaining people, me and Joe. The object was to grab a 10-foot log out of the hole that was totally buried, run it down to the end of a 50-foot course, and put it in another hole. grab a 15-foot pole that is about 5 feet out of the ground, and put it on top of the other pole. Climb the poles, ring the bell, then proceed to the sandpit, and who is ever thrown out first loses. We only had about 20 to 30 minutes after the last round to get ready for this one, and frankly, I was totally spent, coughing up dirt, beat down, and exhausted. The first log came up easy. On the second log, I had no lower body strength and was barely able to breathe or see straight. I fought hard the entire round, but never managed to get out of the hole, and Joe won by default. Joe went on to the obstacle course the next day and blew it away. He was clearly the best competitor out of the starting 8. The next day, we had some wrap up interviews and other things to take care of. Then it was off to the airport to sit and wait for our flights and have a few drinks and socialize a bit with some people from other episodes. Needless to say, it was one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life. I got to meet Stone Cold Steve Austin, along with some very talented athletes from all around the country. By the time I got back to Georgia that Thursday, it all felt unreal and like a total dream, and I could not believe that all this happened in the span of about 3 days.